You've been lying to yourself. You call it patience. You call it being the bigger person. You call it inner peace. But the truth is uglier. You've been using philosophy as a sedative, a polite excuse to stay harmless while other people decide what your life becomes. You already know it, too. You've watched someone less intelligent, less disciplined, less worthy take the seat you wanted because they understood the room, not the rules. You've swallowed disrespect and named it maturity. You've let betrayal pass and told yourself it was wisdom, and every time you did, a quiet part of you noticed the pattern. The world doesn't reward the most virtuous. It rewards the most strategically awake. That's why you're here, because you've been offered two doctrines, and one of them is slowly keeping you weak. Stoicism tells you to master yourself, to accept what you cannot control, to remain unmoved while others burn. It is a discipline of steel if you use it correctly. But in the wrong hands, it becomes an elegant surrender, a way to endure anything, including your own stagnation. Machiavelli offers the opposite temptation. He doesn't soothe you, he arms you. He tells you the world is not a temple but a battlefield of appearances, incentives, alliances, and fear. He doesn't ask what is pure. He asks what holds power and what loses it. Here's the conflict you can't avoid. Stoicism can make you unbreakable, yet defenseless. Machiavelli can make you effective, yet corrosive. So which one should you follow? Not as an identity, not as a slogan, as a survival strategy. As a system for the day someone smiles at you while moving the knife. Stay with me, and you'll learn what each philosophy protects, what each one exposes, and how to choose like a ruler, not like a victim. Let's begin. Stoicism is not softness, but you've been using it that way. The Stoic doctrine begins with a blade. Control what is yours, release what is not. Your judgments, your actions, your discipline. Everything else, reputation, other people's moods, the economy, the betrayal you didn't see coming, belongs to the weather. The Stoic doesn't beg the storm to stop. He builds a body that can walk through it without flinching. That is its power. Because when you cannot be provoked, you cannot be steered. When you are no longer addicted to praise, you stop working for other people's approval. When you accept loss without melodrama, you deny the world its favorite lever, your desperation. But here's where most people corrupt it. They turn acceptance into a moral hiding place. They confuse emotional restraint with strategic inaction. They learn to swallow humiliation with a calm face and call it virtue. They let opportunities die because it wasn't meant for them. They tolerate disrespect because the ego is the enemy. They become very peaceful and very easy to ignore. Understand the trap. Stoicism teaches you to govern yourself. It does not automatically teach you to govern circumstances. Self-mastery is a fortress, but a fortress is not an empire. You can be perfectly composed while someone else writes your future. The Stoic who wins is not the one who endures everything. It is the one who chooses what to endure. He uses calm as a weapon, to think clearly, to wait longer, to negotiate without thirst, to strike without shaking. If Stoicism makes you quieter but not sharper, you are not practicing philosophy. You are practicing sedation. And the world loves sedated people. They don't challenge thrones. They don't expose lies. They don't take what they're owed. They cope. That's your first law. Inner control is the foundation, not the destination. If you stop there, you will become spiritually disciplined and politically irrelevant. Machiavelli begins where Stoicism refuses to look. Stoicism asks, what is the right way to live inside your own mind? Machiavelli asks, who is shaping the room while you're busy being noble? Power is not only held by the loudest person, it is held by the person who controls consequences. The one who can reward, punish, delay, accelerate, include, exclude. The one who decides what becomes normal. Machiavelli teaches you to stop romanticizing human nature. People are not moved by truth alone. They are moved by incentives, fear, belonging, and image. Pretend otherwise and you will be morally clean and strategically stupid. Here's the law he offers you. Perception is reality before reality arrives. Most outcomes are decided before facts are counted. Promotions are won before performance is reviewed. Alliances are formed before arguments are heard. Trust is granted or withheld based on signals, confidence, status, proximity to influence, not on your private virtues. Machiavelli doesn't say virtue is worthless. He says virtue without display is invisible, and invisibility is weakness. This is where naive Stoicism collapses. You can be calm, correct, and competent, and still be framed as insignificant. You can refuse to play status games and still be dominated by those who do. You can tell yourself you don't care what others think, while their thinking quietly decides your access to resources, opportunities, and safety. Machiavelli would call that a luxury belief, something you can only afford when you don't need power. But he also warns you, the pursuit of power is a solvent. Use it carelessly, and it dissolves your soul, your relationships, your identity. If everything is a move, you eventually lose the ability to mean anything you say. So this chapter's principle is colder than it sounds. You must learn to operate inside perception without becoming a slave to it. Control the story around you. Do not worship it. Use alliances. Do not become dependent on them. Be willing to be feared when respect is not available, but never become hated, because hatred is the one emotion that outlives your advantages. Machiavelli doesn't teach evil. He teaches consequences. And if you refuse to study consequences, you will live under the consequences of people who did. The mistake is thinking you must choose one philosophy as a religion. Stoicism is a doctrine for the inside. Machiavelli is a doctrine for the outside. If you apply one to both realms, you become either pure and powerless, or powerful and poisoned. So here is the synthesis the world won't hand you. Be stoic in your nerves, Machiavellian in your strategy. Stoicism gives you the first advantage: immunity to emotional capture. Most people are ruled by reflex. A slight becomes a spiral. A compliment becomes a leash. A loss becomes an identity. They can be manipulated because they are predictable. Press the right bruise, and the entire person moves. A Stoic learns to delay reaction, to separate event from meaning, to watch the mind reach for drama and refuse it. This is not being calm. This is refusing to be programmable. Now Machiavelli enters with the second advantage: the ability to design outcomes. Once you are not being pushed around internally, you can finally push reality externally. You can negotiate without neediness. You can walk away without theatrics. You can wait without panic. And that makes you dangerous, because your timing stops being emotional and becomes strategic. But this fusion requires a rule most people can't tolerate. You must hold two truths at once. Truth 1. Your character is your responsibility. Truth 2. Other people's behavior is not your responsibility, only your problem. Stoicism keeps you from becoming chaotic when someone lies about you. Machiavelli tells you what to do about it. Stoicism prevents you from being consumed by envy. Machiavelli teaches you how to remove the advantage envied. Stoicism stops you from needing validation. Machiavelli teaches you how to manufacture legitimacy anyway, because legitimacy buys you time and safety. If you practice only Stoicism, you may become admirable and still be conquered. If you practice only Machiavelli, you may become feared and eventually be alone. So your third law is this: the inner life must be clean enough to think clearly, and the outer life must be engineered enough to protect what matters. You do not owe the world your softness. You do not owe yourself your cruelty. You owe yourself sovereignty. The Stoic says, do not be disturbed by insult. Machiavelli says, insult is a test to see what they can get away with. This is where your philosophy stops being poetry and becomes territory. When someone disrespects you, there are 3 layers to what happened. The words are the surface. The intent is beneath. But the deepest layer is the social experiment. They are measuring your boundaries, your allies, and your appetite for consequence. If you respond with uncontrolled anger, you confirm weakness. You show them where your buttons are, and they'll press them for sport. If you respond with pure Stoic indifference every time, you risk something else. You train people to believe you do not defend your space. Calm becomes permission. So the rule is precise. Never react emotionally, but always respond strategically. A Stoic response manages your internal state. A Machiavellian response manages the external lesson. Sometimes the correct move is silence, not the silence of surrender, but the silence that forces the other person to sit alone with what they just revealed. Silence can be a spotlight. It makes their aggression look excessive. It invites witnesses to notice. It buys you time to choose the next move without heat. Sometimes the correct move is a clean, controlled boundary. One sentence. No debate, no apology, a refusal to engage further. The message is simple. Access to you is conditional. And sometimes the correct move is punishment, not dramatic, not vengeful, but proportional and surgical. Remove a privilege, withdraw support, break a pattern. If they tried to elevate themselves by diminishing you, you don't argue about respect. You adjust the incentives. This is what most people fear, becoming cold. But cold is not cruelty. Cold is clarity. It is refusing to let emotion bargain away your position. Here is the core law. Your reputation is a border. Borders are not defended with speeches. They are defended with predictable consequences. Be slow to anger. Be quick to define reality. Because the moment people learn that disrespect costs nothing, they will spend it freely. The Stoic trains you to accept loss. Machiavelli trains you to prevent it. Most people lose power long before they lose position. They lose it the moment they become readable, the moment their needs become obvious, the moment they start chasing approval, romance, status, belonging like a starving man chasing bread. From that moment on, everyone can price you. And if they can price you, they can control you. Stoicism attacks the root. Attachment. Not love. Not ambition. Attachment. The desperate requirement that something must happen for you to be okay. That requirement leaks through your voice, your posture, your decisions. It makes you negotiate against yourself. It makes you accept bad terms just to avoid uncertainty. A Stoic mind is hard to bargain with because it can walk away without collapse. Now Machiavelli takes that inner freedom and turns it into leverage. Leverage is not aggression. Leverage is options. The person who can leave holds the meeting hostage without raising their voice. The person who has alternatives becomes expensive to mistreat. The person who is not afraid to be alone cannot be threatened with exile. So here's the law. Cultivate detachment, then build optionality. You do this quietly. You build skills that travel. You build relationships that aren't dependent on one gatekeeper. You build income streams that can't be shut off by one person's mood. You build competence so undeniable that even enemies must respect your usefulness. And you never announce it. You don't posture. You don't warn. You simply become less capturable. This is how you escape the most common form of modern servitude. Emotional dependence dressed as loyalty. The Stoic gives you the spine. I can survive without your approval. Machiavelli gives you the architecture. And I have somewhere else to go. When you combine them, you stop pleading for a place at tables. You become the person whose absence changes the temperature of the room. Both philosophies agree on one brutal truth. Most people don't evaluate you by your essence. They evaluate you by your signals. Stoicism teaches you not to crave recognition. Machiavelli teaches you that recognition still determines your reach. If you ignore this, you become a ghost with good intentions. Here's the law. You must control what you broadcast, even if you don't emotionally depend on it. Stoics speak of virtue as its own reward. That is spiritually clean. Socially, it is incomplete, because the world distributes resources through perception, through stories. People follow who they believe is competent. They trust who appears consistent. They defer to who seems inevitable. So you build an image, but not a costume. A costume is loud and fragile. It collapses the moment pressure arrives. An image is repetition. The same calm under stress, the same standards, the same boundaries, the same output. The image becomes believable because it is true enough to survive contact with reality. Machiavelli would call this controlled visibility. You don't show everything. You show what serves the outcome. You don't explain every decision. You make decisions, then let results speak. You don't chase applause. You let others discover they cannot ignore you. And you never reveal your full interior. Stoicism protects your inner life from becoming public property. Machiavelli protects your public presence from becoming weak. This is how you navigate the most dangerous battlefield. The social one, where people smile while measuring you, where colleagues applaud you while competing, where friends test your boundaries as a joke, where admiration turns into resentment the moment you rise. Your discipline must be invisible. Your competence must be visible. Your plans must be private. Because once people can predict your next move, They can prepare a countermove. The Stoic keeps you unreadable emotionally. The Machiavellian keeps you unmanageable socially. That combination is what forces respect, not through begging, not through aggression, but through inevitability. Here is where Stoicism and Machiavelli truly collide. Morality. Stoicism asks you to be good even when it costs you. Machiavelli asks you to survive, even when goodness fails you. Most people choose whichever line makes them feel clean, but the world doesn't reward cleanliness, it rewards coherence. If your ethics are inconsistent under pressure, you don't have ethics, you have moods. So you need a harder rule than always be virtuous or always do what works. The rule is this: never become the kind of person who can't trust themselves. Because the moment you justify any action as necessary, you open a gate inside your mind. And gates, once opened, rarely close. Today, you bend the truth to protect your position. Tomorrow you lie to preserve your image. Next year you betray someone who trusted you because that's how the game is played. Machiavelli warns about being hated, yes, but the deeper danger is becoming internally divided. One face for the world, one face for yourself, and no stable core at all. That kind of person becomes paranoid, compulsive, addicted to control, unable to rest. Power becomes a prison. Yet pure Stoic virtue has its own trap, becoming a saint in a system run by wolves. If you refuse every strategic compromise, you may remain innocent and be removed, replaced and forgotten. Your goodness doesn't reform the wolves, it simply feeds them. So your seventh law is disciplined flexibility. You keep a small set of non-negotiables, lines you do not cross, because crossing them changes who you are. And outside those lines, you become ruthlessly practical. Timing, alliances, silence, negotiation, leverage, image. You don't need to be cruel. You do need to be realistic. The strongest position is not moral purity. It's moral clarity paired with strategic intelligence. That is how you stay effective without becoming hollow. The Stoic endures time. Machiavelli uses it. Most people are defeated by impatience, disguised as urgency. They rush to respond, to explain, to defend, to clarify because silence feels like losing. They think speed is strength. In reality, speed is often a confession that you are emotionally reactive, that you fear misunderstanding, that you cannot tolerate uncertainty. Stoicism trains the first weapon, delayed reaction. The gap between stimulus and response. The ability to sit inside discomfort without scrambling to escape it. That gap is not passive, it's strategic space. Machiavelli teaches the second weapon, timing as domination. In every rivalry, there's a hidden rhythm when people are distracted, when they're insecure, when their allies are present, when their image is fragile, when the room is sympathetic. If you act at the wrong time, even truth looks like desperation. If you act at the right time, even a small move feels like a verdict. So your law is simple: never answer on their clock. When someone provokes you, they are trying to force tempo. When someone demands an immediate decision, they are trying to deny you options. When someone pressures you for a reaction, they're not seeking clarity, they're seeking advantage. You resist calmly. You don't argue in the heat. You don't negotiate while thirsty. You don't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, you let time do what it always does. Reveal motives, shift alliances, expose inconsistencies. You watch who grows impatient. You watch who panics. You watch who overplays their hand. And then you move once cleanly. Stoicism keeps you from twitching. Machiavelli teaches you when the single strike lands hardest. Power is often just the ability to wait longer than the other person's mask can hold. Now we answer the real question. Which one should you follow? You don't follow Stoicism or Machiavelli like a creed. You deploy them like two hands on the same weapon. Stoicism is your internal constitution. It decides who you are when no one is watching. It keeps you from becoming loud, needy, reactive, everything manipulators love. It makes you resistant to shame, immune to provocation, and capable of standing in fire without begging it to cool. Machiavelli is your external doctrine. It decides how you move among people who are not committed to your well-being. It teaches you to read incentives, design outcomes, manage perception, and protect what you build from those who would happily take it. So here is the final law, the one that settles the conflict. Live stoically. Operate Machiavellian. Let your emotions be governed by discipline, not impulse. Let your strategy be governed by reality, not ideals. Be calm enough not to be baited. Be sharp enough not to be used. Because the world will offer you two traps. Trap 1 is becoming so at peace that you accept a life beneath your potential. Trap 2 is becoming so effective that you sacrifice your soul for a throne you can't rest on. The correct path is narrower, colder, and far more powerful. Inner integrity with outer intelligence. You don't need to be cruel to be formidable. You don't need to be naive to be good. You need self-command, and you need leverage. Subscribe and like if you're done being governed by emotion and ready to move with intention. Because what comes next is for those who don't merely watch power, they learn it, hold it, and never give it away.